Creating content for our businesses, love it or hate it, it is part of the everyday life of a small business owner. But how do you do it in a way that doesn't suck all of the joy and fun out of the process? Hi, I'm Catherine Erdley. I'm your host today, and I'm also the founder of the Resilient Retail Club, which is my membership group and mastermind for product businesses. You can find out more at resilientretailclub.com and also sign up for a chat with me about my next round of my mastermind, which will be kicking off in June. Today, I am joined by Char Dixon. Char is the founder of Loudmouth Content. She also has a really in-depth background in the retail industry and a whole host of knowledge about what it takes to market and promote your product business in a way that feels joyful, fun, and without the overwhelm. Welcome to the Resilient Retail Game Plan, a podcast for anyone wanting to start, grow, or scale a profitable creative product business with me, Catherine Erdley. The Resilient Retail Game Plan is a podcast dedicated to one thing: breaking down the concepts and tools that I've gathered from 20 years in the retail industry and showing you how you can use them in your business. This is the real nuts and bolts of running a successful product business, broken down in an easy, accessible way. This is not a podcast about learning how to make your business look good. It's the tools and techniques that will make you and your business feel good. Confidently plan, launch, and manage your products, and feel in control of your sales numbers and cash flow to help you build a resilient retail business. Char, thank you so much for joining me on the podcast today. Do you want to kick us off by introducing yourself and your business?
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for having me. So I worked in retail for the past 19 years. I started off in the creative marketing team at New Look as a newbie and worked my way up in like marketing roles, marketing manager at brands like Crew Clothing, Joy, Waitrose. And then I became head of marketing at June, the shoe and bag brand. And I was there for 4 years. And after that, I want to take a little bit of a more creative sidestep into copywriting, because that was also one of my big passions. So I moved to creative agencies, worked on brands like Simple and Dove, and then became lead copywriter at Expedia. But then I've discovered this small business world, and I had such a passion for small businesses, and I really believe they're the future. And it was at that point that I was just like, right, I can really help here, because I see the overwhelm. I see how much people struggle with content. Even someone who comes from it that's my background. I see how overwhelming it can be. And I knew that I could help small business owners to get more of a handle on that and to enjoy it, as well as use things like Instagram as like a serious sales and marketing channel for their business. And aside from that, I also help people with their copywriting as well. That's me and my business in a nutshell, and how I got to here.
Amazing. And your business is called Loudmouth Content, which I think is a great name. But what was your thinking behind the name?
So yeah, it was all about really getting people seen and getting people heard. And I think small businesses struggle. I think it's hard on things like Instagram to get seen and get heard. There's an imbalance for sure between big brands and small brands, and breaking through those barriers. So it's really my job and my why and my everything to get small businesses seen and heard. And it was, making their voice heard is essentially what built into that name.
Love it. Fantastic. And how long have you been helping small businesses?
Probably a couple of years now, but as very much like a side hustle, and then becoming a main focus of mine. So it's built in the background. And every time I've worked with different clients, I've just been like, yes, there's definitely something here, and there's so much that I can bring to this. So it's developed over time.
Yeah, amazing. Well, I love it. So great to have you on here, because you're coming from that real depth of knowledge of what it takes to get a big brand out, the sort of the brand messaging, and get that content out there and make it work for a brand, but equally then with the small business passion. So I feel like it's going to be a great chat. Can't wait to dive in. So let's start talking about content then. So obviously, for everyone who's online, who's using social media to sell, then content is absolutely crucial when it comes to their marketing. But how do you think people should be optimizing it or making the most out of their content to make sure it's pulling its weight?
Yeah, absolutely. So every piece of copy, every piece of content that we have has a job to do. So whether that's a product description or your About Us page on your website or your Instagram bio, each of those things has a different job. And we need to be sure that we're coming at it from a strategic point of view. Product descriptions, for example, are we giving customers all the feels and all the information
Mm,
they need to make a sale? Is my Instagram bio created in such a way so that people, when they land on it, are going to want to follow or buy and going to want to stick around and be with our brand? We need to be creating buzz through our content, so making our own headlines. So we're not waiting around for like Valentine's Day to crop up or Black Friday or for a new product launch to talk about our products and businesses. We need to be creating our own headlines with our content, and we can do that through various campaigns or and our day-to-day content. We need to be unapologetic about shouting about our businesses because let's face it, no one else is going to do it for us. We need to show up regularly and repeat our messages, our values, our beliefs. I think small business owners often feels like they're boring people by repeating the same message
mm,
or they don't have anything new to talk about. We know
mhm,
from the data that we see on Instagram, for example, your content is shown to such a tiny proportion of even your audience, let alone beyond that. We need to be repeating those messages and actually
mhm,
coming from big brand corporate world. When they run campaigns, they do it from a playbook, which means that they specifically repeat messages time and time again,
mm,
because that is what builds recognition. And that's
mhm,
when people start to remember, and that's when people start to take action. And we know people need to see messages many times before they even think about taking any action. It's just how consumer psychology works. So making sure that we are really strategic about how we're using our words and our content so that it is doing a job and pulling its weight for our business.
Yeah, that's such a great point. I often say that to people like Nike don't go, do you think we should just do it? Too many times now, everyone's bored of hearing it. Coca-Cola, do we need the Coca-Cola Santa? I don't know. It's just that these things that we accept it from these big businesses that they absolutely hammer the same message over and over again. But then for small businesses, maybe it's because I do wonder sometimes it's because often we are the face of our brands or it's a very personal brand. And when you're a person talking to another person, you're conscious of the fact that you don't want to just keep telling somebody the same story over and over again because that would make you a bit odd and boring. But we forget that, yes, we may be the face of our brand, it may be personal, but equally so that this is a business and we have a message and the marketing message needs to be consistent. I loved what you said there about making your own headlines. Could you give us a couple of examples? So if someone's listening thinking, okay, that sounds great. How do I make my own headline?
Yeah. So, for example, if you're thinking like, I've got nothing to create content on today, I don't have anything new dropping, there's no like major retail event going on. For example, if one of your values is sustainability, you
Mm,
could create a campaign and have Sustainability Week. Every post,
mm,
every piece of content, everything you talk about that week, you're going to hype up about sustainability. You're going to talk about how it comes through in your products, in your packaging, how you believe in that, why you believe in that, give us facts around the industry. You could run a whole campaign. And by campaign, I mean just everything that you talk about that week is devoted to this one subject. And you could run a whole
mm,
campaign about sustainability. What that does is create buzz because you've knocked people
mm,
out of what they normally expect from you. They're scrolling and it creates buzz. It also lets you go deeper into certain areas of your business. So it means that often our content, we keep it quite top layer, top level. But when we go deeper into the subject, people are then just, oh, wow, they've actually put so much thought and care and attention into
mm,
no, not just the products, but the packaging. Maybe your actual studio is all plastic free, all of these things that build into the value of your business. And when we show
mhm,
all these little inside scoops on our business like that, every time we do that, it adds value to the customer. Suddenly they're just like, this is the kind of business that I want to buy into. This is the kind of product that I value in my life and my home. So You can create your own headlines in that way, and it can be anything. It could be like, we're going to go all out on blue. It could be, absolutely anything,
Yeah.
whatever resonates most with you, your business, something that's going on at the minute. You can create campaigns out of
About
nothing,
anything.
everything.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, I often think people forget about their bestsellers as well. Like people thinking, right, I do my new product launch or my seasonal collections, but actually having a week where all you do is talk about your best-selling item and how amazing it is and how you came up with the concept and why people love it and all the great feedback you've had. That is, it's just as valid because actually it's more likely people are going to buy it because it's already a bestseller. So why not shout about it?
absolutely.
Yeah. So let's talk a little bit more about the kind of buyer journey, if you like. So obviously the goal for people, especially on social media, is they want to get those people who are scrolling, as you talked about, the kind of casual observer, if you like, or the casual, the person who just comes across you, and you want to turn them into buyers, actual cold hard cash. Often people get really tripped up on how to actually use their content to move people through that process. So can you give us some tips on thinking about that strategically?
Yeah, absolutely. It's really interesting because we all kind of know like a shop situation because we've all been in them and stuff. But when we think of digital, we feel like it has to be different. And actually,
Mm,
the principles are exactly the same, whether we're in a bricks and mortar store or if we're online. So, for example, if we go to like a shop situation, you wouldn't open your door of your shop to someone that's never been in before, thrust a shoe in their face and say, this one's £69. We would open the door, we would welcome them in. If they didn't know about our business, we would tell them a little bit about it. We would maybe then show them around the collection. We'd maybe ask them, is there something specific they're shopping for? And then, we'd start to get to know them a little bit. If they
mm,
bought with us before, they came back in, we'd be like, oh, you loved this last time. Maybe you would like
mm,
this time. We've got some new things in that we think you'd love. So we can do exactly the same in our content by making sure that we have something for all of those phases and all of those different
mm,
customers. If we are closing the loop and we have content for each of those phases and customers, we will keep them in our world, in our business, and they will go through that process of having enough information and all the fields and all of that good stuff to take them from understanding who we are as a business, what we stand for, what we care about, what we sell, why, and then going into the finer details of the products and then doing that all again. So by having content that speaks to all of those different things, that's how we make sure that we keep people in our loop and they don't fall out of that loop.
mm.
But yeah, essentially the principles are exactly the same as if it were in a physical shop scenario.
So make sure that you've got the content that talks about you as a brand, talks about what you do, talks about your beliefs, your values. Do you suggest that people almost work out a percentage that they should have of each type, or is it about making sure that you've got a mix and you're not just always using the same sort of being understanding what phase this content addresses? Is that useful as
Yeah.
well?
So essentially, you want to make sure that you've got some content that brings new people in, which
Mm,
tends to be reels. So saying, right, my reels are going to be the thing that is going to bring people into my business.
mm,
Focusing on that, focusing that piece of content. So that is about bringing people in and you focus that content to be as such. So what's going to get people's attention? What's going to bring them into the business? If we're talking about in jokes that they don't get yet, it's not going to work. We need to
mm,
wait
mhm,
until they're into our business. For example, in our stories, because we know that the
mm,
people hanging out in our stories are our most loyal fans. That's when we can start having in jokes and conversations and chats and all that good stuff. That is where we build those connections, develop those communities. Reels, where we're going to be out trying to get new customers, and not the place to do that kind of content. So we need
mm,
to look
mhm,
at within our content, which bit are we going to have for getting new people? And then your CTA, for example, becomes follow me CTA. We want to
mm,
get those people in. Once they're in, we can then start to connect, build community, have conversations with them. So now we need to tailor our content more towards that. What do they now need? They want to know more about the business, our values, what we're all about. And then obviously they want to see more detail of the product. We want to talk about all those gorgeous, the feels of our product and what that really is for us in terms of feelings and impact on our life. But we also want to go into the detail as well. They want to see it up close, especially in a digital space where we can't pick it up and have a look and have a feel and all those lovely things that we can do in a physical shop.
Mm-hmm.
Making sure that we have got all of that information as well, that we've gone really into the detail. So maybe it's a carousel that takes one product and shows every single little angle of it up close. So we feel like we're almost in that shop holding it and having a look at it. So
Mm-hmm.
making sure that when we create each piece of content, we should know what job it's setting out to do, because no one piece of
Mm-hmm.
content will do it all.
Such a good point. So you mentioned their community, and I'd like to drill into that a little bit more. So, what are some of the ways that people can use their content to create that connection? You talked about the importance of it, but how do you actually go about creating content that creates community and connection?
Yeah. So essentially, we want to put our community, our people, our followers at the heart of everything. So, what do they
Mm,
genuinely need help with? What do they want to see more of? How can you genuinely make their home or their day or their lives better? So, we need to think about going beyond selling products, beyond features and functionality. And we need to think about more about creating a lifestyle around those products that people want to buy
mm,
into. We don't buy products for products themselves. So, for example, like I don't buy a candle because I want a glass jar of wax. I want to buy a candle because it means I can shut the bathroom door away from the kids for half an hour. I can have some me time. I can, my house can smell like a spa, give me all of those good feelings. If I buy like a planner, for example, it's because I want to take away the chaos that is my life and get some organization in there. So it's really about tapping into that and bringing people into that world. So, how can you help people be more organized? How can you offer so much more in your content than here's my planner, but rather here's how to be more organized in your life. Here's how to have a routine so you can have a little bit more calm. What are those other areas around your product that you can really tap
mm,
into in your content? Going back to the candle example, could you have like moments of self-care where you encourage people who are scrolling by to just stop, pause for 5 minutes and just sit and not be rushing around just for 5 minutes. Everyone in, the world can spare 5 minutes. So it's how do you connect with your audience on that kind of basis? And how do you add real, genuine value to them by creating content that, like, imagine if your product's right at the heart of it and you building this world around it. And that's what you want to
mm.
bring people into with your content.
Yeah, such a great point. So building the lifestyle that they can buy into. So just out of curiosity, so somewhere like June, shoe and bag brand. So that is the same process I imagine a big business like that's doing. They're thinking about who is the June customer, what is buying shoes or bags from June saying about them, their lives. How can you then show that lifestyle? Is that the kind of thought process from a bigger retail perspective?
Yeah, with the bigger retail perspective, again, it's exactly that. It's showing people how these products fit within their lives, how they're going to
Mm,
feel going to a wedding as a guest and having that confidence to feel good,
mm,
showing how these pieces can make you feel, essentially tapping into the emotional side.
mm.
Essentially, you're part of a tribe. It's saying, this is what I like to do. This is how I spend my time. This is how I want to express myself in the world. And yeah, it would be exactly the same for big retailers like that as it would be for small ones. And actually showing like user generated content. So showing people using your products is a great way to
Mm.
show people in that community and enjoying that community
Mm.
and showing that you could be a part of that too. That's also another really great way that big brands and small brands can tap into that community feel as well, having that user generated content.
Oh, yeah, that's such a good point. I love the book. It's been years since I read it, but Seth Godin's This Is Marketing, and he talks about people like us do things like this. Do you think I suppose it doesn't always have to be aspirational, right? Because sometimes when you think about buying into a lifestyle, we think about, I mean, I know that's how luxury operates, right? They always want to show this lifestyle that you could be part of, and you're buying into that aspiration. But I suppose it could be more of a connection based on shared values.
100%. And I think there's been a massive shift in recent years away from this flawless, produced, glossy look in terms, and I think the big brands have actually had a bit of a wake-up call because they've gone from this switch where everything is photoshopped to perfection, and actually people don't really want that. They want the
Mm,
realness that comes, through these small brands, for example, who are showing their vulnerable side and showing the highs, the lows, the everything. Actually, people want that. People, I think, are wising up to the fact that everything's been airbrushed and it's not real and it's not reality. And I think people actually want to see themselves in user generated content. And there's certainly been a
mm,
shift in that direction way too late from the big brands. The small brands are doing this. They've always been doing this, is showing how their brand and products sit in the real world,
mm,
how it's being used by real women with real bodies, with real things to say. And I think that is something that the small businesses win out on every single time. And people definitely want that vulnerability. And I think that vulnerability really is what builds connection. It's what people really buy into and want to see that. So
mm.
I don't think we need to strive for perfection. I think we need to strive for being real and authentic um, in our content, because that is what is going to help you connect with your audience the most.
Okay. So let's talk a little bit about content creation then, because obviously all small business owners are busy wearing multiple hats and it can feel really overwhelming to actually think about taking the time to create content. So what are some of your tips for streamlining the process or managing the juggle?
Yeah, it's a lot. It's a lot for sure. And I think from how I try to keep things with my clients is just keep it super simple. Each week, for example, say, right, I'm going to do 3 posts, for example, a reel, a carousel, a grid post. Do the same every week. Make it a routine. Create in a series so that each time the format's the same. You know where you're going to put your text. You know what color the text is going to be. Having those almost a style guide in certain formats that you use suddenly takes out all of that headspace, all of that thinking. Like, we shouldn't be creating posts from scratch. We shouldn't be thinking, right,
Mm,
well, what's this one going to look like? What's it going to, what's the focus going to be? What's the style going to be? We need to make it simpler at every step, using templates where we have text again. So we're just replacing the text rather than designing from scratch every time. Thinking about low maintenance formats. Like, yeah, it's lovely to do day in the life with a voiceover and all these different things, but that takes time. If you don't have the time, or if you find content overwhelming, stick to formats that are much more simple. So whether that's a time lapse of you working, creating your products, or a simple video of you creating products or working or what have you, even organizing your studio space, whatever it is, and having
mm,
text over the top. Having simple formats like that you can literally repeat time and time again, it's good for you because you know where you're at, you know what you're going, half the battle is, what's this even going to look like? You
yeah.
get quicker and it becomes easier with practice, which is always great. And also, we again going back to this point that we think we're boring our audience, but actually people love familiarity. They love that. If you think of like big shows that we see on TV this morning or whatever, they don't change the format every day. They change the content, but they don't change the
Yeah.
format because it would just be unmanageable. We need to think about how we keep the format, the structure the same, but change the content within it, and having a process. And I think, undoubtedly people have a process for their invoices. They have a process for when they receive an order, how they might package it up and send it out, stock taking, all these different things. You'll have a process. But how many people have a content process that they follow every time? A lot of people start from scratch
Mm.
every time. If you have a simple process that you follow every time, you've suddenly taken out so much of the headspace, the guesswork, the energy, the time, and you're now in such a better position to stick to what you're going to commit to in terms of your content.
That's such great advice. Thank you so much. Yeah, absolutely. So just basically reduce the headspace.
Yeah,
Keep it simple. Don't overcomplicate it. have a rinse and repeat formula so that you can go from there.
Yeah.
Love it. So last question then is if you're doing that and you've got your formats and you've got yourself into a routine, a process, how do you actually measure the success of content? What are some of the key metrics people can look at to make sure that it's not just the vanity metrics they're mapping, but just what are some of the ways that you would encourage people to assess their formats? Because presumably at some point you want to just check these formats are working and maybe tweak them if they're not.
And I would suggest doing this on a monthly basis. Sit down with a cup of tea. You only need to take 15 minutes out of your day, but it's so important. I know it can seem daunting, but all you need to do is go in, look at the content that you shared over the past month, have a look at the metrics, the likes, the shares, the save, the follows. Can you see any trends between those posts? The ones that have performed best, the ones that maybe haven't. And when we're looking at that, have a look at what was the topics we were talking about. Is there any commonalities between the themes that we were talking about? What about the length of your posts, the length of your reels? What was it, having your voice in them? Did it not have your voice in it? Did it show your face? Did it not show your face? You will start to see trends in your posts, what is doing better. And then we can double down on what's working and maybe sack off the stuff that's not doing so well. Give it a chance to flourish if it's something you've just started doing. But there is no point going on and on with a series that we know isn't maybe landing as we want it to. Looking at those results once a month, having a look at another really good one is having a look at profile visits versus follows. So if you go onto a post and it's got 20 profile visits and no follows, that is generally telling you that your bio needs a bit of an update because they're coming to you to a post, or your posts and your profile don't match. So you probably need to do a little bit of a refresh on your profile, which we all need to do from time to time. It's just general maintenance. But that one can be a really good indicator that people are not finding what they expect, or it's a little bit lacking, or they can't binge it. We want people to look at your grid and just totally see what everything's all about so they can then just go through and have a bit of a session on your grid. So that's a really good one. But yeah, having a look at what's working, what's not, and use that data to then go into the following month and use that to plan your next month's content.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Char. It's been such a fantastic conversation. I know it's going to be so useful for people listening. So do you want to wrap up by telling us where we can find out more about you?
Yes. So I'm mostly on Instagram at Loudmouth Content. And you can come and check out. I've got loads of tips on content there. You can DM me, we can chat. I also run power hours. So if you want to get your content working harder, you want Instagram to be a better sales and marketing channel for you, we can absolutely thrash out a strategy for you. If you want to look at emails, we can do that too. Or if you just want me to do it for you, you can come and get some copywriting done by me as well. But yeah, if you head over to Instagram at Loudmouth Content and we can go from there.
Thanks so much for listening in. Why don't you head over to Resilient Retail Club on Instagram? Let me know what you thought about today's episode. And why not share a photo of where you're tuning in from? I always love to see those when I'm tagged in them. Also, I wanted to say a huge thank you because I recently discovered that this podcast is in the top 2% of podcasts globally, which is an incredible idea and just makes me so grateful to everyone who listens. So thank you so much. Don't forget, if you subscribe or follow the podcast, then you'll be the first to know about each new episode that comes out on a Thursday morning. And of course, if you have a moment to rate and review the podcast, it makes a huge difference in terms of getting it out there in front of more people. Thank you so much for listening, and I'll see you next week.